This premium tank is one of the brand new vehicles as part of a challenge that you can pick up in World of Tanks. Now, it is a vehicle that has been out for a while, but of course it's brand new to the Earn Challenge, where you can pick up the Primo Victoria, which is the skinned version of this tank here. So unfortunately, I don't have the Primo Victoria yet, and I'm working my way through the Season Pass challenge, or at least one of the challenges of this season, which is essentially the Metal Fest Sabaton, which you have to be able to complete number 8 to be able to pick this one up. But we do have a ton of time to be able to do it, and some of you may have already got it, which is why I wanted to do this video, to give you a rundown of how this tank plays, why I had such an amazing game without, trying to big it up too much in this tank, and the sorts of things that you have to do when playing the medium tanks that are from basically the British line. Albeit this is a Swedish tank, it is essentially a British tank in disguise, and considering how much I've played of all of the British tanks and British mediums in particular, 3 marking I believe all but one, which is the FE4202, and that's next on the list at some point. That we'll have to go and do. But the STRV 81 is essentially a Centurion 1, and it plays very, very nicely. It has a decent silver bonus. Of course, being a premium tank, it gets 60% silver bonus, which is slightly higher than the standard, which tends to be about 50%, so an extra 10% on top. So you can earn quite a bit of silver in this vehicle for the World War II mode, and the good thing about it is that it is a fast firing medium tank with decent damage per minute for a medium tank at tier 8. It also gets decent penetration for its tier, not the best overall, but I mean, with 258 on the premium rounds, you can deal with a lot of tanks in the game, and pretty much most of them, to be honest. And of course, you've got a decent view range and a little bit of armor as well, sprinkled in there for some amusement of when some people actually may bounce off of you. But don't rely on the armor because it's not particularly great. But overall, a decent one if you can get hold down and use the turret armor with the 10 degrees of gun depression, which is really good for this vehicle. So that, combined with the good accuracy, the rate of fire, and of course the kind of mobility, having 50 kilometers an hour top speed, make this pretty good. Now, we are running it with vertical stabilizers to increase our accuracy, since I'm more concerned about that in this tank than most other things, because I mean, it's very good at doing most things all round. You could swap it out potentially for the traction system, but having really pinpoint accuracy can save you in a lot of situations, and we'll see that in one of the first gameplays that we do have. And of course, advanced loader for the increased damage per minute, which is almost necessary to be able to use mediums super effectively, because you just want to be able to pump out as much damage as possible, lock people down, keep them tracked and stuff. Maybe we'll see that later on in this next replay. And of course, advanced optics as well, so that we can boost our view range to be able to spot, as any good medium with a decent amount of view range as it starts with should probably have in their tank. We ran it with premium repair kit, and we ran it with premium rations. I didn't actually go with premium med kit, but I would do if I wanted to min-max this tank, but we weren't too fussed. And given how well we actually performed, you definitely don't need it, but it is going to help you out. It's just a bonus at the end of the day. And of course, it is reusable, so if you ever get 2 crew members knocked out in different times in the game, then yeah, it's going to help massively. But either way, that is how the tank actually kind of looks like it's going to play. But let's see how it can play in probably one of the best games that you'll see in a tank like this at this tier. So let's jump into that, and let's stop hyping it up as much. Now then, the first replay that we do have is of course on Great Wall, and we're going to be playing this fairly aggressively at the beginning of the game, and it's going to be of course, like I say, the best game I've had in a long time, considering how the game was actually going. And hopefully it's going to give you an idea as to not only looking at this tank in particular, but how you can carry and at least try and get as much out of a game where your team end up just like throwing away all of their hit points, or they end up just making it very difficult for you to deal damage, and you're thinking, how can I actually deal a bit of damage here? How can I not just get steamrolled by the opponent? So we're going to have a look at exactly how I managed to do that in this game, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two or find it useful. And if you do, let me know in the comment section down below, and of course let me know if you're enjoying these videos, and if you want to do me a massive favour, then of course you can like the video or subscribe if you actually enjoy the content. But I digress. Straight into this one, what do we have to do in these games? Well, we have to be pretty aggressive because we are, you know, one of the top tier tanks in the game. And you can see here instantly we start off by tracking this UDES 14 Alt 5 even. And that tank is pretty decent. The one problem is that it gets, you know, quite a long reload, and we don't get quite a long reload, and we basically plow around straight into him, and he's feeling a little bit worse for wear right now. Now, the problem I've found myself in is right now is this Progetto over here has decided to unload in the side of us. So we lose quite a bit of hit points, which is not ideal, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And there we go. We go for the track and damage and actual damage. And not only do we pick up a bit of both, we also, you know, just get the Dreadnought to finish that guy off. And he's out of the game now, can't really do a whole lot. Now, I know that the enemy team are pushing down here pretty aggressively, and so I need to help these guys out. And you're seeing here, we're just trying to find that cupola of the VK16801P, and you're about to find out the reason why I don't like playing these super heavy tanks, and it's because of things like the cupola, which make the armor entirely pointless. And yeah, that's 3 shots in a row. Can we make it 4? Oh yeah, we can. Oh, could we make it 5? There's definitely no way. Oh yeah, that's 5. What about a 6th? Maybe we'll actually bounce this one. Oh yes, we do. There we go. 5 in a row though. Or 4 in a row. Yeah, maybe we can now finish this guy off. And rather than him sitting back, he decides to YOLO. Not quite sure why, but he exposes his lower plate, and that is just an easy pen, like 100%. This is why having super heavy armor is absolutely pointless in my opinion, and why sacrificing so much to get that is not worth it in any regard, which is why I don't like playing super heavies like the Maos, the E100, stuff like that, although the E100 isn't so bad. But what we do now is our team have kind of thrown themselves away at the top of the hill here to some of the good players. One thing that I noticed was that the M41D was actually in the Chile clan, which is a bit of a sweaty clan, or one of the clans that is kind of well known for being super unicums and usually like 60+% win rate players. And so I was really hoping we could deal a bit of damage, and I know that given that he's not an absolute bot, he might actually be trying to make a play to out-trade us, or, you know, get around the side of us. And I wasn't sure what that light tank was. We double-checked him to see if it was this, you know, Chile clan member. It wasn't, which is fine. And so what I do here is just basically get on the corner. I need to start taking these guys out, because if I don't, we're going to find ourselves in a sausage sandwich, and we all know how sausage sandwiches are. It's not fun when you're on the receiving end. So what we do here is just try and get a shot on some of these guys. We can quite easily just make really crude shots because the reload is pretty decent, which means you don't have to sit and fully aim every single shot. It does not necessarily need you to do that, because you reload so quick. If you're in a tank that has high alpha, absolutely you should be thinking about reloading and fully aiming your shots. But in this thing, we reload in 5 seconds. It's worth just getting that damage out as quickly as possible, and potentially, you know, being able to bounce rounds or not take rounds in return, because I need my hit points for later on in the game. Now, given the fact that the enemy team are in the base, I'm now thinking, this isn't looking too good, because I am kind of stuck in a situation where they can get shots onto me, as you're seeing here, the M41 here. I keep moving forward to just make it difficult for him to hit the weak points. But we back up in the bush, I try and avoid getting hit, and then we put one more into this M41. He's probably triggered because, you know, triggered unicum seems to be a nice little meta thing, but he's playing a bit more passively. He's not just coming out, and so I decide, you know what, stuff that. I'm going to try and get rid of as many of these who are up here as possible, and then maybe we can deal a bit of damage. Now I try and go for the easy shot. I was concerned that the Progetto was going to be coming. Seems like he wasn't, but we do push up here because I don't want to get hit in the back, because the enemy team are going to push up. And my worst fears are going to come to pass in a second as they finish off the T-34-3. And of course my teammate isn't quite pushed up. The Bulldog is the one that's hitting us in the back, which kind of sucks. But I pull back. The T-29 now decides to make a big brain play, which is to throw himself away down the slope. And unfortunately gets one into us, but I mean, goodbye. I mean, that was just not the greatest play. He could have probably outplayed me by just sitting on the ridge and being a pain, but I guess I'll take the extra damage. But as you've seen in the top right, we've picked up 5,400 damage right now. And the M41, obviously thinking that I'm a complete bot and never going to be able to deal damage to this guy, decides to YOLO. And yeah, no, I'm not a complete bot, so we're going to get behind and make it difficult for him to hit us on the move. And there you go, the Dreadnought actually helps us out there, even as a tank that's left high and dry and back in the garage most likely. But there you go, the enemy team then decide to cap, which just sucks. I was hoping to finish off this SU and maybe we could have won the game, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. But still, 6,000 damage is not bad whatsoever, and I will take that every single day of the week, almost coming top on a loss in the game with 1,591 base experience, and the top player on the enemy team doing just over half my damage, getting 4 more XP than I did. But yeah, we still ended up losing, so maybe I could have carried a little bit more, but that is not a bad result considering everything in that game and how the game actually went. So you can see what the top level gameplay in this sort of tank can be. You get a mastery badge on that loss, which is good, and of course, yeah, you have to play super well in it, and it is a high skill cap tank in terms of what you can do at the upper level, that I feel like people could quite easily enjoy it. I've really enjoyed these sorts of tanks, and this is why I enjoy playing these British mediums in the game as they are. Now then, I want to take this next gameplay to show you what happens when you make a big mistake in tanks like this, and how you can overcome it and still deal a decent amount of damage, even if you don't get the result you were hoping for like we had last game. You can still salvage it, and of course this is not the best matchup in the world, as you see a Leopard PTA rolling across in front of me there. Which means that we are in a tier 9 game, so, you know, armor working a hell of a lot less than you would expect. But starting off, we're going to make a move over to this hill area. I'll catch you in a second when some action happens, as this one is kind of spaced out and you're having to see a long period of time where we're not doing a whole lot. And that is really down to what happens in a second, which you'll see now. Now then, what exactly do we do wrong? Well, yeah, it's this. Yeah. We lost 1,100 hit points at the very beginning of the game, and could have quite easily been taken out there if we didn't block the 840 damage that we just received. And you can see me looking at myself thinking, oh, I'm an idiot. And yes, I have these games too where you lose all your hit points, but I can still manage to pull out a game where you still do double the actual health of your tank, even when you've only got 300 hit points to trade. So it is possible, and hopefully this is going to show you how you can kind of do it, and that this tank is not invulnerable like you saw in the last game. There are flaws to it, and that is the armor model is not fantastic. Yeah, there are quite a few negatives with the tank like this, but either way, we started off pretty weak. I mean, we've taken 1,100 damage and we've only done 470 in return. Of course, the higher the ratio between your damage and of course the enemy's damage to you, the better the game has gone. So, i.e., if you've got a 5 damage ratio, you've had a pretty good game. Albeit I'd like to caveat it, saying, you know, if you've done 5 damage and they've dealt 1 damage to you, then no, that doesn't really count. That's not a good game. But you get my drift. If you can maintain that throughout all of your games on World of Tanks, then you are going to be one of the better players in the game, because your damage caused / received is going to be really good. And even if you do a ton of damage and get taken out from full health, if you still have a really high damage ratio, then that's fantastic. And it's what you want, because that's just a good show of what you can do as a player, and that, you know, you're not just sat camping in the base all game, albeit can be skewed a little bit by that. And if you play artillery, then yeah, I mean, that definitely affects it. But with 680 damage, you can see me trying to blind fire here. I cannot be like spotted at this point. If I get spotted, it's going to be all over pretty quickly, and I get spotted. Yes, yes, very good. Let's not get spotted anymore. Let's pull back down the hill, put this big rock in between me and the campers on their base hill, and then let's try and get a shot onto this KPZ, who manages to hit us there, even though he was aiming at the floor like 0.2 of a second before. Of course, must have auto-aimed or at least just flicked up onto me, and luckily managed to actually hit. And there you go. We've done 919 damage, so we're clawing back that damage that we've lost and how much we're doing back to the opponents, which is good. And hopefully we can keep that up. And with these medium tanks, you can do it. You just have to make sure that you are staying aware. And of course, the KPZ manages to hit me on the move, flicking around to try and hit me, which is just World of Tanks console at this point. The accuracy is ridiculously good, and it allows you to do things like that. But having noticed that we've got 1128 damage and received 1300, yeah, this is a pretty poor game, but that's why I picked it, is because it's not always about having these ridiculous games. You can see me here going for the blind fire on the enemy tanks in the bush. I knew that they were there, so why not try and get a bit of damage from them. You can see they're obviously triggered because they're firing back. And the thing that you need to do if you ever do this is that they can trace where your rounds are coming from, and then they can deal damage to you that way. So just be aware of that. That you don't just sit there spamming rounds into bushes, because sometimes they will actually have a brain and fire back at where those bullets are coming from, or rounds I should call them. They're not bullets, but you know what I mean. Either way, we're kind of sat here waiting for the enemy team to make the mistake, and it's a pretty close game, so we don't want to end up throwing it away. And there you go, we pick up 1 extra damage. And even by just doing things like this, you drastically increase your chances of winning the game, because, you know, if I just throw myself away, having done basically nothing at the beginning of the game, we would have been in a much worse position. We wouldn't have gotten an extra 1,000 damage as a team. I wouldn't have been able to take that guy out, who could have got some more damage on one of my teammates. So there's loads of things that people always forget when they see tanks like this. And why you want to be making sure that you're not just throwing yourself away when you have a bad experience in the game. Yeah, just be careful. What you're just seeing me do here is just trying to bait out where the opponents are. There's a Type 4, and there's also this KPZ. The KPZ's a bit of a nightmare to actually try and deal with. And given the fact that we don't really have much team support over this side, I'm a little bit hesitant to try and push over towards the Type 4. And I'd rather let them push into me, because I can get hold down. I can use the ridges over here where we're relocating to. And I guess now is a good time to kind of flick ahead to see me where I actually mean. So we've moved into this location over here. This provides us with a decent amount of view range and also a decent amount of targets that we could hit at this stage in the game. You see me trying to blind fire here to get a bit more damage like we saw, trying to save my game as much as possible. That it doesn't happen, but you never know, it could. And given the fact that these Type 4 and also the medium are out of my view range right now, I can just basically sit out in the open and not get spotted. How do I know that? Well, the dashed white line that's shown on the minimap is where you can get spotted from an enemy teammate if they've got max view range. So what you can see me doing here is just farming up the Type 4 without ever risking getting spotted until this point here, at which the Canonian Jagdpanzer 105 goes through the middle, who could spot me, and then there's this Vengeance who could definitely spot me, especially if I fire. So we're just a little bit worried about getting spotted, but what we'll do here is just go again for the weak point of the Type 4 Heavy, which is that little shoulder. And yeah, a nice little shot there. I know that he's looking over this way, and you saw there he actually fired. So that is exactly what I was hoping for. He goes for the little pea shooter on the Type 4, but yeah, it's not enough to finish me off. But we get 2,700 damage here. You can see what I mean by, you know, saving games just from playing a little bit smarter at the end of the game. And not just throwing myself away, because I could have quite easily got angry, YOLO'd in to try and take someone out, and then got taken out myself. But I didn't do that. I tried to focus down, keep my eyes on the game, and hopefully come away with a win. Whether that actually happens is, yeah, another thing entirely, and yeah, I guess we can skip ahead just a second to see what exactly happened and how we got taken out. And so unfortunately the KPZ actually pushes up, which means he can get hold down, and unfortunately we don't have super high penetration to be able to pen him easily. And so I decide, you know what, I'll put the rock in between me and him, and then I'll go for this Vengeant who hits me on the move, of course, going up a slope, which is always balanced. Probably was definitely not free aiming. Yeah, kind of sucks, but at the same time, you know, you win some, you lose some, you get bad RNG sometimes, and even me, yes, I do get bad RNG, I have terrible games as well, and sometimes I play bad, and that is the result. And even with a bad game, even when I made mistakes at the beginning, we still pull it back, and this tank is perfect at being able to do that. So hopefully it's given you an indication as to what this tank can do, why you want to get it, and why it's actually a really good free tank to actually pick up, albeit this is not a skinned version of it. The skinned version is the Primo Victoria, and it's probably the cooler looking one of the two. So hopefully you've enjoyed. Let me know what videos you want to see next, and we'll have some more content on the latest updates and news for World of Tanks console, including the new tanks that they bring out. And yeah, I hope you'll join me back in that one, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.